Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. We've got a fantastic set of materials you sent over this time, really digging into smart cities, the tech, the cybersecurity. It's all interconnected.
It really is. We're seeing everything from, high-level reports on attack risks down to specific papers on resilience and trust.
Exactly. And we know you listeners come with all sorts of backgrounds, different levels of technical insight. So our mission, as always, is to unpack this, pull out the key insights on the risks and resilience of these, cyber-physical systems.
Right, and try to do it without getting bogged down in excessive jargon, making sense of how our physical world, traffic, power, water is increasingly tied to the digital.
That's the core of it. And the Smart Cities Dive piece you sent, highlighting the heightened cyber attack risk on critical infrastructure, state and local level. That felt like a really strong starting point.
Yeah, it definitely frames the urgency, doesn't it? Why this matters right now.
Yeah, it really does. Okay, before we dive deeper, I just want to give a quick thank you to one of our sponsors, www.cybersafe.city. Their support helps us keep doing these deep dives.
Great. So where do we start this integration?
Yeah, let's start there. The cool innovations are one thing, but this merging of cyber and physical, that's the fundamental shift, isn't it?
Absolutely. That CISO paper, The Future of Smart Cities, nails it. They talk about cyber-physical infrastructure. It's not just separate systems anymore.
Right, it's the system of systems.
Yeah.
Sounds efficient.
It can be, yeah. Huge potential efficiencies. But it also completely changes the game for security. The lines are blurring.
Or maybe disappearing. CISA calls it changing seams, right? So a cyber attack isn't just about data loss anymore.
Exactly. It's about physical consequences. Flicking off the power grid, messing with traffic lights, contaminating water. Those seams, those old boundaries between, say, the office IT network and the plant control system, they're getting fuzzier, more connected.
More connections mean more ways in for attackers, like adding smart locks to an old house without upgrading the windows.
That's a good analogy. And CISA points out another huge challenge: inconsistent adoption.
Yeah. So different cities, even different departments within a city, are adopting tech at different speeds.
Precisely. You get this patchwork, state-of-the-art systems talking through older, maybe less secure networks, or legacy equipment just hanging on.
Creates blind spots.
Yeah.
Makes unified security policies almost impossible, I imagine.
It's incredibly difficult. You're only as strong as your weakest link,
Makes sense. And then there's automation. We usually think, great, fewer human errors.
And that can be true. But CISA flags that automation also, massively expands the attack surface. More automated systems equals more digital doors to potentially kick in.
Okay, so more entry points. And they also mention things like skill atrophy.
Yeah, like operators maybe getting out of practice with manual overrides or just losing that sort of gut level feel for the whole system because it's so automated. Less visibility sometimes.
Fewer eyes on the ball, potentially. Okay, let's make this concrete. CISA's Table 1 had examples, right? What kind of tech are we talking about? Transportation.
Sure. In transport, you've got autonomous vehicles, obviously, but also positive train control, or PTC, the safety system.
Right, to prevent collisions and stuff.
Exactly. Then, intelligent transportation systems, IES, managing traffic flow, signs, sensors, and vehicle-to-vehicle, V2V, or vehicle-to-infrastructure, V2I communication.
So cars talking to each other, cars talking to traffic lights.
Yeah.
Okay, what about electricity?
There you see smart power plants using digital controls, smart grids for distribution and transmission, and AMI advanced metering infrastructure.
Smart meters on our houses, got it.
Yeah. And then water and wastewater, smart treatment plants, smart distribution networks, monitoring flow, even smart storage.
Wow, okay. It really is woven into everything. Which brings us squarely to the vulnerabilities. Let's stick with transportation first. Autonomous vehicles seem like, a prime target.
They really are. CISA highlights that nightmare scenario. Remote control. Someone grabbing the wheel, brakes, acceleration, or just messing with the sensors. Remember those demos back in 2014?
Oh yeah, the G-Pack. That was a wake-up call. And patching cars isn't like updating your phone, is it?
Not at all. It can be way more complex. Over-the-air updates help, but they're not everywhere. Imagine a vulnerability found years after sale, recalling millions of cars, logistically insane.
And the potential for hitting many vehicles at once.
Yeah, coordinated attacks. And CISA even mentions simpler things, like jamming LiDAR sensors with cheap devices, blinding the car, basically.
That's unsettlingly simple.
Yeah.
Okay, what about positive train control? The safety systems.
The risk there is exploiting system access to cause.
Yeah.
Derailments, collisions. Imagine forcing a train carrying hazardous materials to speed up.
Oh, wow.
And the report notes interoperability issues, Different rail companies, different PTC systems, maybe not talking perfectly to each other, more seams, more potential weaknesses.
Lack of standardization is a vulnerability.
Okay.
And the intelligent transportation systems, traffic lights.
Accessing those networks, you could cause chaos, gridlock, accidents. CISO points out the vulnerabilities in wireless signals and sometimes routing through less secure commercial networks.
Yeah, that convenience versus security trade-off again. Okay, shifting gears to electricity. What are the worries there?
A big one is connecting those traditionally isolated control systems, SCADA systems, in power plants to wider networks.
SCADA. That's like the plant's nervous system, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Controls the machinery, the processes. They weren't always designed with today's cyber threats in mind. Now they're connected, they're more exposed. An attack could mean brownouts, blackouts.
Not good.
And attackers might target IT service providers or third-party vendors who serve multiple energy companies, like that NISC ransomware incident CISA mentioned, a way to hit many targets at once.
A supply chain attack, essentially.
Exactly. And replacing specialized, damaged physical hardware in a plant, that takes time. Serious time and money.
Right. Prolonged outages. What about the grid itself? Distribution, transmission?
Similar risks. Hitting networked components, the SCADA systems managing power flow. CISA mentions the Dragonfly group getting into transmission control systems. That shows it's a persistent threat.
So direct outages. Or could they manipulate things more subtly?
Yeah, like messing with pricing data or demand response programs to destabilize the grid indirectly.
Okay. And the smart meters, AMI.
Massive attack surface, right? Millions of devices, huge amounts of consumer data, so big privacy concerns. Plus, potential for disrupting service or even messing with billing if the meters or networks are compromised.
Yeah, really feels like every layer is vulnerable. Okay, lastly, water and wastewater. Maybe not the first thing people think of for cyber attacks.
You'd think, but increased automation in treatment plants makes their SCADA systems a target, disrupting treatment, damaging equipment. CISA cites that Australian incident from 2000.
A disgruntled insider.
Yeah, manipulated the wastewater system.
Yeah.
Caused massive sewage spills. Shows the insider threat is real too.
Grim example. And the distribution, pipes and pumps.
More connectivity, more remote sensors, more potential entry points, manipulating pumps, valves. You could disrupt supply, cause damaging pressure surges, or even make flooding worse by messing with drainage.
And water storage. Reservoirs.
Remote controls there are vulnerable. Contamination is a huge worry, obviously. Or just cutting off water availability. Big impact potential.
It's sobering. The interconnectedness is the strength and the weakness. Security has to be paramount.
Absolutely. Baked in, not bolted on.
Totally. And speaking of managing risk, let's pause to thank our second sponsor, risk.securiooffice.world. Okay, so we've laid out a lot of the threats. How do cities fight back? Let's talk resilience, response. That literature review you shared seems key here.
Yeah, it defines cyber resilience as basically the ability to resist attacks and keep functioning effectively even when things go wrong, recovering quickly.
So not just prevention, but bouncing back.
Exactly. And because you can't prevent everything, the review stresses incident response, IR, is critical. Having a plan.
A plan for when, not if.
Right. And a huge part of that is handling digital evidence, DE, collecting it, preserving it properly so it holds up, legally. Like digital forensics for these critical systems.
Makes sense. Need the evidence to figure out what happened, who did it? Did the reviews say where the research focus has been?
Interestingly, yeah. It found most research looks at the detection and analysis part, figuring out you've been hit and how.
Okay.
But less focus on the other parts of the process, containment, cleanup, recovery, especially in the specific context of these cyber physical systems. And a big hurdle, lack of real-world data from these systems for researchers to experiment with.
So we're getting better at spotting the problem, maybe less practiced at the full solution in these smart city settings.
Sure, got it.
Now let's talk ransomware. That Homeland Security report, the Economic Impact Study, paints a pretty bleak picture.
It really does. Ransomware is, brutally effective. Lockup systems, demand payment, the costs are huge. Downtime, recovery, reputation. That study mentioned nearly $19 billion in costs back in 2020 just for government entities.
$19 billion. Wow. And the Homeland Security report said it's tough to counter, even with efforts to stop the money flow.
Yeah, it's tricky. Sanctioning crypto exchanges helps, but paying is often still the fastest way back online for victims. And there's this whole industry now of ransom intermediaries, forensic firms, cyber insurers, lawyers who negotiate and facilitate payments.
So they help victims, but maybe also make the whole ransomware business model work better.
That's the concern, yeah. An unintended consequence, perhaps. The report also mentions new laws, like the Cyber Incident Reporting for Critical Infrastructure Act, CRCA.
Right. Mandates reporting incidents quickly, 72 hours. And ransom payments even faster.
24 hours for payments, yeah. But the report notes challenges, like aligning that with public company disclosure rules or just the difficulty of reporting accurately while you're still fighting the fire.
A tough balancing act. And CISA is trying to make reporting easier through stopransomware.gov.
Yeah, the push is for a really simple initial reporting form. Get the basics quickly. Encourage more victims to share info so we get a better picture of the threat.
Make it frictionless. Okay. So, beyond immediate threats and response, let's widen the lens to trust. That other CISA paper had a framework for this, right? Trust characteristics.
It did. Really valuable. It argues that for people to accept and rely on smart city tech, we need to build trust based on several key characteristics. It's not just does it work, but can we depend on it? Is it safe? Fair?
And it's not just a simple yes-no checklist for these characteristics.
No, exactly. CISA says they need to be managed to a sufficient level based on risk. It's about balance. Sometimes you might trade off a tiny bit of, say, optimal security for better reliability in a critical moment. Making informed choices.
Okay, a dynamic balancing act.
Yeah.
And public engagement is key.
Crucial. If these systems are just a black box, people get suspicious. Talking to communities, listening to concerns, being transparent, that builds confidence.
Makes sense. Openness reduces fear. And security is kind of the foundation for all other trust, isn't it?
It really is. If people don't feel the system is secure, they won't trust its reliability, its safety, its privacy protections. None of it. So strong authentication, authorization, knowing who can do what, that's fundamental.
Got it. Security first. What are some other big trust characteristics CISA mentioned?
Reliability, minimizing downtime, making sure it feels dependable. Safety, personal, property, environmental safety, thinking about failure modes. Resilience, bouncing back from disruptions. Not just cyber attacks, but storms, errors, whatever.
The basics for critical systems.
Pretty much. Then privacy controlling data collection, use, storage, giving people agency. Maintainability, can we patch it, upgrade it, keep it running long term?
Future-proofing.
Right. Impact, is it actually delivering the promised benefits? Well-being, how does it affect people's experience living in the city? Fairness, avoiding bias, ensuring equitable access, transparency in algorithms. And integration, making sure all the different parts work together smoothly.
That's a lot to consider. It's way beyond just the tech specs. It's about the whole societal integration.
Absolutely. And CISA wraps up by highlighting their role in securing critical infrastructure, including all this smart city tech, and stressing that collaboration is essential. Government, industry, researchers, the public, everyone needs to be involved.
Collaboration seems to be the thread running through all of this.
It has to be. These challenges are too big, too complex for any one group to handle alone.
Definitely. Okay, one last thank you to our sponsors, this time to risk.securiat.house. All right, as we wrap up this deep dive, let's try to summarize the big picture here. What are the main takeaways?
Okay, I'd say first, that deep interconnection in smart cities. It creates huge benefits, but also a much bigger, more complex attack surface where cyber meets physical. Second, there are real specific vulnerabilities across critical sectors, transport, energy, water, each needing tailored defenses. Third, ransomware is a massive growing threat with serious economic and operational impacts.
Right.
And finally, building trust isn't just about tech security. It's a holistic thing, needing attention to reliability, safety, resilience, privacy, fairness, all those characteristics we just discussed.
It really hammers home that understanding these cyber dimensions is crucial for anyone wanting to be truly informed about where our cities are heading. It's not just cool tech. It's the security and trust that make it work long term.
Couldn't agree more. Getting a handle on these complexities is vital for anyone living in, working in, or governing these evolving urban spaces.
So maybe a final thought to leave everyone with. We see this constant merging of our physical and digital lives in smart cities. Beyond relying on the experts and the government, what's the role for us? For individual citizens, for communities, how can we actively participate in shaping the security and the trustworthiness of these systems that are becoming so central to our lives? How do we strike that balance between convenience, efficiency, and genuine security and fairness for everyone? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.